The devastating floods in Ireland: causes, impact, and future preparedness. Flooding stands as one of Ireland's most persistent and challenging natural hazards, with a history that has profoundly influenced the nation's infrastructure, policy frameworks, and societal resilience. In this comprehensive analysis, we delve into the intricacies of flooding in Ireland, exploring its historical context, dissecting recent significant events with technical rigor, and examining the multifaceted causes underpinning these occurrences. We will assess the wide-ranging impacts on economic, social, and environmental spheres, scrutinize governmental and institutional responses, and discuss future preparedness strategies imbued with advanced technological and policy-driven solutions. Ireland's geographical disposition renders it inherently susceptible to flooding. The country's temperate maritime climate, influenced by the North Atlantic Drift, brings substantial annual precipitation, averaging between 1,000 mm and 1,400 mm. The hydrological network, characterized by numerous rivers, most notably the River Shannon, with a catchment area of approximately 16,865 square kilometers, serves as both a resource and a hazard. The 2009 Cork floods. In November 2009, unprecedented pluvial and fluvial flooding occurred in Cork due to extreme rainfall, with the month's total exceeding 300% of the long-term average. The River Lee's flow rates surge, compelling the controlled release of water from the Inniscarra Dam to prevent structural failure. This action, while necessary, resulted in downstream inundation of Cork City. The event caused over €100 million in damages, with critical infrastructure such as water treatment facilities and the electrical network severely compromised. The 2015-2016 winter events. The winter of 2015-2016 was marked by a series of Atlantic storms, Desmond, Eva, and Frank, that delivered record-breaking rainfall. Monthly accumulations surpassed 350 mm in several locations, leading to the highest river levels recorded in decades. The flooding impacted over 4,000 properties, with agricultural losses estimated at €85 million due to prolonged waterlogging of arable land and pasture. These events have underscored the necessity for robust flood risk management strategies. The government's adoption of the Catchment Flood Risk Assessment and Management (CFRAM) program represents a systematic approach to identifying and addressing flood risks through detailed hydrological modeling, mapping of flood extents with return periods of up to 1 in 1,000 years, and community consultation processes to inform sustainable flood defense schemes. Recent flood events. February 2020 witnessed significant flooding associated with Storm Ciara and Storm Dennis. Meteorological data indicated rainfall intensities reaching 20 mm per hour in some catchments, overwhelming river capacities. The River Shannon and its tributaries exceeded critical thresholds, with water levels at record highs, necessitating emergency responses across multiple counties. Field surveys and interviews with affected residents, such as those in Athlone, revealed the profound disruption caused. Mrs. Eileen Murphy, whose home was flooded despite the presence of temporary barriers, emphasized the insufficiency of existing defenses against such extreme events. The psychosocial impacts, including stress and a sense of insecurity, were palpable among the community. The utilization of advanced communication technologies, including smartphone applications and social media platforms, facilitated real-time dissemination of flood warnings and situation updates. Data analytics from these platforms provided emergency services with valuable insights into affected areas and resource allocation needs. Causes of flooding in Ireland. Atmospheric rivers, narrow corridors of concentrated moisture, have been identified as contributors to heavy precipitation events in Ireland. Such phenomena can transport water vapor at rates comparable to the discharge of major terrestrial rivers, leading to intense rainfall when making landfall. Sea level rise and storm surges. Long-term tidal gauge records and satellite observations confirm that mean sea levels around Ireland are rising at an accelerating rate, currently estimated at 3.5 mm per year. This exacerbates coastal flooding risk, particularly when coupled with low-pressure storm systems inducing storm surges that can add over 1 meter to normal tidal levels. Fluvial dynamics and saturated catchments. Hydrological analyses indicate that antecedent soil moisture conditions play a critical role. Saturated soils, unable to absorb additional rainfall, increase surface runoff, rapidly elevating river levels. This effect is pronounced in catchments with high water tables and low permeability substrates. Urbanization and impervious surfaces. The expansion of urban areas has increased the extent of impervious surfaces by approximately 15% over the past 2 decades. Such surfaces prevent infiltration, leading to higher peak discharges in urban streams, a phenomenon quantified by increased runoff coefficients in hydrological models. Agricultural land management. Intensive agricultural practices, including land drainage schemes and removal of natural vegetation buffers, have altered the hydrological response of rural catchments. Studies have shown that such alterations can reduce lag times and increase peak flows by up to 20% in affected catchments. Climate change. The National Adaptation Framework recognizes climate change as a significant driver of increased flood risk. Climate projections using Representative Concentration Pathway (RCP) scenarios indicate a potential increase in extreme precipitation events by up to 20% by 2050 under RCP 8.5. Economic impact. Economic losses from flooding are multifaceted. Direct damages include destruction of property and infrastructure, while indirect costs encompass business interruption, loss of agricultural productivity, and long-term depreciation of land values. The 2020 floods alone resulted in insured losses of over €29 million, with uninsured losses likely adding significantly to this figure. Social impact. Flooding disrupts communities, leading to displacement, health risks, and social cohesion challenges. Public health concerns arise from water contamination, mold growth in damp structures, and stress-related illnesses. Social vulnerability assessments highlight that marginalized groups often bear a disproportionate burden of flood impacts. Environmental impact. Ecosystems can be both beneficiaries and victims of flooding. While natural floods can rejuvenate wetland habitats, anthropogenic floods often introduce pollutants, including agricultural runoff rich in nitrates and phosphates, leading to eutrophication of water bodies. Biodiversity loss is a significant concern, particularly for aquatic species sensitive to water quality changes. Immediate emergency responses. The National Directorate for Fire and Emergency Management coordinates immediate response efforts. Deployment of the civil defense and the defense forces provides manpower and logistical support for evacuation, flood defense erection, and critical infrastructure protection. Long-term recovery and rehabilitation. Post-flood recovery involves the implementation of the National Flood Risk Management Policy, emphasizing not only the restoration of infrastructure but also the enhancement of resilience. Funding mechanisms, such as the Flood Relief Scheme, provide financial assistance for property-level protection measures. Community and individual initiatives. Community-based organizations, such as the Irish National Flood Forum, empower residents through advocacy, education, and collaborative planning. Local flood action groups have successfully lobbied for improved flood defenses and greater transparency in flood risk communication. Property-level protection. Adoption of property flood resilience (PFR) measures is increasing, with technologies such as flood-resistant building materials, demountable flood barriers, and automatic air brick closures being implemented. Grants and incentives support homeowners in investing in such measures. Educational initiatives, often in partnership with academic institutions, aim to enhance understanding of flood risks and promote best practices in mitigation. Training programs for professionals in engineering, planning, and emergency management enhance institutional capacity to address complex flood challenges. Structural interventions. Engineering solutions include the construction of embankments, floodwalls, and culverts designed to withstand specific flood return periods. The utilization of computational fluid dynamics (CFD) models informs the design and optimization of these structures, ensuring efficacy under varied hydrological conditions. Nature-based solutions. Reinstatement of natural floodplains and afforestation are recognized for their ability to attenuate flood peaks. The incorporation of natural water retention measures, NWRMs, aligns with EU directives promoting sustainable water management. Technological innovations. Advancements in remote sensing, including the use of synthetic aperture radar (SAR) satellite imagery, enable detailed monitoring of flood extents irrespective of weather conditions. Integration of these data into hydrological models enhances predictive capabilities. Role of climate change. Climatological research utilizing downscaled models projects an increase in the frequency of extreme precipitation events. The Environmental Protection Agency's Climate Research Program provides vital data, indicating that what was once a 1 in 50-year event could become a 1 in 10-year event by mid-century under high-emission scenarios. Mitigation and adaptation efforts. Ireland's Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Amendment Act 2021 sets legally binding targets for carbon neutrality by 2050. Sectoral adaptation plans, including those for water resource management, outline strategies to enhance resilience against climate-induced hydrological changes. International collaboration. Ireland actively participates in international climate initiatives, contributing to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) assessments and supporting global frameworks such as the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Future preparedness and adaptation. Integration of flood risk management into all levels of spatial planning ensures that development is sustainable and risk-informed. Strategic flood risk assessments, SFRAs, are now mandatory components of regional and local development plans. Innovative policy approaches. Policies promoting room for the river concepts advocate for accommodating floodwaters in designated areas rather than solely relying on defense structures. Economic instruments, such as flood insurance pricing reflecting actual risk levels, incentivize risk reduction measures and informed decision-making. Empowering communities and stakeholders. Stakeholder engagement processes ensure that the voices of those most affected by flooding inform policy and practice. Capacity building programs enhance the skills and knowledge of local actors, fostering a collaborative approach to resilience building. The phenomenon of flooding in Ireland is a complex interplay of meteorological, hydrological, and anthropogenic factors, intensified by the overarching challenge of climate change. The impacts are profound, cutting across economic, social, and environmental domains. However, through informed policymaking, advanced technological applications, and proactive community engagement, Ireland can enhance its resilience to future flood events. It is imperative that experts, policymakers, and citizens collaborate to foster a paradigm shift from reactive responses to proactive, integrated flood risk management. The urgency of this endeavor cannot be overstated, as the risks associated with inaction will only magnify in the face of a changing climate. We call upon you, esteemed colleagues and stakeholders, to contribute your expertise, advocate for robust policies, and engage in meaningful actions that will safeguard Ireland's future against the challenges of flooding.